This is Internet Marketing. Brought to you by SiteVisibility at sitevisibility.co.uk. This is Internet Marketing. Now, before we start today, we'd like to encourage anyone looking for help with their digital marketing to get in touch with SiteVisibility. Whether you have a burning digital marketing question or you're looking for an agency to work with, they'd love to hear from you. Give them a call, +44 1273 733 433, or you can fill out the form at sitevisibility.co.uk/contact. Alternatively, you can speak to either Scott or Sean via the live chat function on the site. They'd be happy to help. Today I'm joined by Larry Kim, founder and CEO at MobileMonkey. Larry, how are you doing?
Doing great. Thanks for having me today.
It's an absolute pleasure. You're from Boston, USA, is that right?
From Canada, moved to Boston about a decade ago. I'm an U.S. immigrant, but yeah, I live in Cambridge. It's just across the river in Harvard Square.
Fantastic. I think our last guest was from Boston as well. So today I want to talk about your business, MobileMonkey, and a little bit about how you got there. But before we do that, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Sure. Thanks for having me again. My name's Larry. I'm kind of a, internet marketer known for growth hacks and unicorn, tactics and stuff like this. I do a lot of, blogging on, I'm the number 8 ranked blogger on Medium. I do a lot of content marketing around tips and tricks on how to be successful at growing your businesses with a particular emphasis on marketing. I've also started several pretty successful businesses. One of them is called WordStream. It's the world's largest pay-per-click advertising software company, managing over $1 billion of ad spend for tens of thousands of customers worldwide. And the other one is more recently is called MobileMonkey, and it's a Facebook messaging application for businesses to message people through Facebook Messenger, and it's used by millions of people.
Fantastic. I'll come on to MobileMonkey in a minute. Actually, tell me a little bit about WordStream, because that was recently acquired, you mentioned. What does WordStream actually do?
As I mentioned earlier, it's a pay-per-click advertising platform. So if you think of marketers, they need to, manage their spending on different advertising platforms like Google or Facebook or Microsoft Bing, etc. And so what this product does is it just makes it very easy for, companies to manage those campaigns from one centralized location. And it's Google's number one, software partner. As I mentioned before, it manages $1 billion of ad spend, which is it's a lot of money. Google only does about $50 billion in ad spend, so that's roughly 2% of their worldwide ad spend is managed through WordStream.
And that was acquired, of course. Was that quite? I forget. Was that quite recent?
Yeah, the deal closed last month in July.
Yeah.
It was, over approximately $150 million cash deal. The acquiring company is called Gannett, which is the owner of a media company known as USA Today.
Fantastic. Now, your new company, MobileMonkey, it's mobilemonkey.com. Tell us a bit about that, because that's in the sort of messaging space, isn't it?
Yeah, so messaging is a really important communication medium. Believe it or not, there's more daily active users on messaging platforms such as Facebook Messenger than there are people on social media, in general, because people, the newsfeed is garbage and people just want to be able to talk to their friends. And so historically, messaging has been about you talking to your friends, and Facebook has recently opened that up to allow businesses to get in on the action, to be able to, allow businesses to message consumers, but there's various strict, rules in play here. I can't just, blast a chat message to anybody. I can only blast people who've messaged me in the past. So like my existing customers or people that I have a existing customer relationship with, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
And I think this is a really fantastic growth marketing channel for marketers, because if you think about how are the other ways that you reach your customers, it's probably things like email, which has an average open rate of around 5. Okay.
Yeah.
And like these chat blasts, if you send through messaging, because it's like, sends out a push notification to people's phones, it's typically we're getting around 70 to 80% open rates within the first 5 minutes. So it's significantly higher. Not only that, the engagement rates, like the click rates, are higher in email. Of the 5% of people who open your email, approximately 1% of them will actually click on anything in that email. In chat, it's about 20%. So if you multiply them together, chat is about 80 times more engaging than a typical email. So it's a pretty hot space right now. That's how we have millions of users already.
Yeah.
But I think it's an area that marketers, if you're not already doing this, maybe you should take a look into that. And we're one of the companies that makes that possible, because we have a software product that kind of makes that easy for companies to do, like to build a list of subscribers and to compose content and then to distribute that to their people. So it's a little bit like MailChimp, but using chat rather than email, if that makes sense.
And presumably more real time than MailChimp as well.
Yes. So typically, when you do a chat blast, there's no expectation on the part. Or I'm sorry, an email blast using an email. There's no expectation on the part of the recipient that they can just respond to those emails. You see what I'm saying? Like, it's usually the emails are being sent from like no reply at constantcontact.com or something like that. And so it's a sort of a one-way communication. In chat, on the other hand, there is an expectation of this being an interactive conversation. Okay. And so when you do a chat blast to people, what you do is rather than sending just like a long 800-word announcement, typically what you do is you sequence these things in little kind of tweet-sized messages, like 1 or 2 sentences, but then you have all these like interactive options, like do you want to learn more, press this button, like you make it a little bit more like customizable, so that they can interact with the content and even ask questions to the company. And then what you do is you set up, this is known as a chatbot. You set up different responses for the different types of questions that you're anticipating.
Yes.
So they're going to ask you about typically people ask the same questions. Like 80% of the questions are the same questions over and over.
Yeah.
And so what you can do is you can just configure the system to recognize certain keywords like pricing or directions or refund policy or you know what I mean. Like there's it'll recognize certain types of phrases and triggers, and then you can create content that will automatically respond to those types of questions. It's a lot like in AdWords, how you specify keywords to trigger different types of ads, and then Google will then kind of interpret what the user is searching for and try to serve the correct ads in response to those queries based on the keywords that you provide. That's the same idea here in chat. You just create content. You apply some keywords to the content, and it'll automate these conversations. Not 100%, but you can answer a good amount of these questions.
That's fantastic. And presumably there's automation plays a key part in this, like with sort of keyword recognition, things like that, to come up with the next question or offer something. Presumably there is a point where you might want to hand over to a human. How is that facilitated on the platform?
Sure. So, as you mentioned, there is a lot of automation. It's known as natural language processing. Natural language processing is where we develop algorithms that infer the intent of what the user is asking to the chat system. Okay. And then it's augmented using something called machine learning, and that is where we we check to see whether or not the intent of the user was satisfied with the content that we served. If so, we'll probably use it next time. If not, we'll probably try something else. So it's kind of it's almost like training a virtual assistant. You know what I mean? Like if you hired a receptionist to answer your phone calls, and they would have a lot of questions on day one, but on like how to answer different types of phone calls. But over the next week or the next month, they would kind of figure out what the main questions and answers are, and be able to answer them more correctly over time. Now, you had asked about something known as live operator takeover. Okay,
yes.
So that's so these chats, you can think of them as kind of tier 1 support, if you will. If somebody wants to talk to an operator, they can do that. And then what happens is you just start chatting. As soon as a human operator takes over, these bots shut themselves up, so that they won't generate the kind of the canned responses simultaneously. It's like one or the other. And of course, you can jump in at any time. I think another analogy for this kind of software is like when you call into one of those large companies like a hospital or a cable company, or like there's usually some kind of automated assistant that tries to offload some of the questions. But then maybe 50 or 60% of the time you can have your question resolved, like what are your hours, or make a bill payment or something like that. You don't need to talk to a person for that. But then every once in a while you have these weird situations that are just these outliers, like my television is on fire or something like this. Like I don't know. It's like you have these weird things that you call in for, and then you really need to talk to an operator, and then you then talk to these human operators. And I think it probably makes sense that companies have both live chat but also a chat bot to kind of offload some of those inquiries.
Larry, this sort of I was going to say spike, but trend we've been seeing recently in sort of a bit of AI and automated sort of messaging bots. When did that really start to take off, in your opinion?
Look, so I think it's still very early. When I ask, I speak at these different conferences, and if there's like 1,000 people in the room, I'll ask how many of you actually have like a business chat application running. Like it's typically around 1 or 2% of the room. So I don't think that it's. There's definitely more people who haven't used this technology yet, but my thinking is that in the next 3 to 5 years, I could see 30 to 40% of companies adopting this type of technology. So I think the big adoption wave is still yet to come, as opposed to happened in the past. Because I'll give you an example. There's about 100 million Facebook business pages, okay, on Facebook. Less than 500,000 of them have automated, responses for the messages that they receive. So less than 500,000 out of 100 million. So that's 0.5%. That's less than 1%. So on the other hand, in marketing, if you jump on these things early on, you usually receive a disproportionate benefit. So, for example, if you started doing Twitter when, it was 2007, I've actually over the time I've accumulated 1 million followers. You know what I mean? But if you try to start doing Twitter today in 2018, good luck. It's just gotten too noisy. You know what I mean? Yeah. There's like a first mover advantage for marketing channels. Like if you were doing Facebook ads, 7 years ago, then you would have been paying like pennies for these clicks, and now. Today in 2018, Facebook ads are like $5 a click. Yeah. So I think what happens is the earlier you are, the less competition there is, and the easier it is to grow, because it's just a less noisy channel. Yeah. So I would encourage people to, try it out. It's not that hard to do. It's mobilemonkey.com.
Yeah. Do you think there are certain types of businesses where this is particularly well suited?
So the number one use case for this messaging technology that we're finding is just chat blasting. Okay. So that's where you have an audience of people and you just want to send them your latest announcements, like, hey, there's a new podcast, or there's a new blog post, or we're having an event, that kind of just chat blasting, just kind of the same kind of use cases as email marketing, except that people are actually going to read this because it has like 80% open rates as opposed to 5% open rates in email. So, if you're doing email marketing, keep doing that, but like start looking to diversify into chat because that's where people prefer to receive their content. Yeah. There's sort of this generational shift, once in a generational shift happening right now in terms of communications preferences. So as of 2018, the preferred mechanism of receiving communication amongst the general population, more people prefer messaging over email and social media combined. So this hasn't happened, like this general change in preferences hasn't happened since 25 years ago, when email overtook telephone conversations as sort of the preferred mechanism of communication. So you can see how this is it's kind of a profound shift. And so like if you're only doing email marketing, I think that's probably not a great strategy.
Well, it's certainly a great takeaway for our audience. It's something they should definitely have a look at. And before I ask you about how people can contact you, I must go off piste slightly here, Larry, because when we listeners, when we do these shows, I have a little document, and my guests often give me a bit of personal information. I couldn't help noticing that you're reconstructing a 200-year-old haunted house in Harvard Square, Cambridge. Tell us about that just briefly, because that's fascinating.
Oh, sure. So, I sold my business, so we made an enormous amount of money, and one of the things I got was this house in Harvard Square in Cambridge. It's near the Harvard Law School, and it's like it's not old by you're in the UK, so you guys have been around for like forever, but America is only like 230 years old or something. So this house here, it's from like 1860s, like around the time of the Civil War, which is pretty early in the nation's history for the United States. 1776 is sort of the when it all started. It's just a very old house, and we're trying to restore it, and it's going to take it's like a 2-year project, but it's left. It has another two months left.
And have you had any strange experiences, Larry, while you were doing it up?
It has some history. It's known as the Shaw House. Yeah. It's related to some very famous people who fought in the Civil War with like the 1st Black Regiment, the Massachusetts 51st Regiment. So there's some history behind it, and it's like a historical thing. Like the whole thing about the Civil War was they were fighting over slavery and there was this movie called Glory. Did you see that movie?
I think I've seen that one, though.
It was with Matthew Broderick. It was just the first, African American, military regiment to fight to fight in the American Civil War. But there's some relatives of that family that was, anyways, it's like a historical thing. Yeah.
It's really interesting. I'm half expecting to see it on Ghost Hunters at some point. So anyway, Gary, thanks so much for talking to us. So how can people find out more about MobileMonkey, more about you, Instagram, Twitter, that sort of stuff?
Why don't we try this? Let's connect on Facebook Messenger. Okay. Yep. So it's normally when people say, connect with me on email or LinkedIn or Twitter, Like messaging is the future. So let's connect on Messenger. The handle is, I've created a short link. It's bit.ly /
Yeah.
FB, like Facebook, FB-blaster. And just type that into a URL and see what happens, and you'll be amazed.
We'll put that in the show notes so people can click on that. So you'll probably get both of our listeners clicking that. I'd say both. That's going to make it out of my own podcast. You should. We'll put that in the show notes. So feel free to click that, listeners, and I guess you'll be on a live chat with Larry.
Well, yeah, it's you'll be able to send messages to me, basically. All right.
Well, thanks a lot, Larry, and thanks for listening, listeners. Show notes are in the usual place, sitevisibility.co.uk/IMPodcast. If you're enjoying the show, please leave us a review. If you've got questions and suggestions, the email is podcast@sitevisibility.co.uk. You can tweet at SiteVisibility. We have a Site Visibility group on LinkedIn. So that's all from me, Andy, and it's all from Larry.
Thanks, Andy. Have a great day.
Thanks, Larry, and we'll see you next time on Internet Marketing.